State of the Sun Devils with Jeremy Schnell, Jesse Morrison, and Mitch Bareldes, an Arizona Sports podcast.
Hello and welcome into another edition of State of the Sun Devils alongside Jesse Morrison and Mitch Bareldes. I'm Jeremy Schnell. The volleyball team has made the tournament for the first time since 2015,
Heck
gentlemen.
Yes, let's go.
We're very excited about that. And also something to be very excited about. Later in this episode, we're going to be joined by the head coach of the volleyball team, JJ Van Niel.
Nice.
So please stay tuned for that. But first,
Pac-12 Coach of the Year as well.
Yes, we will talk about that later. I actually give him a round of applause. So that is something to look forward to later in this episode. But first, some breaking news out of Sun Devil football this morning. Mitch, do you want to talk about what just happened in Sun Devil football this morning?
Not burying the lead, Bo Baldwin, who served as the offensive coordinator in Kenny Dillingham's first year with Arizona State. He will no longer be on staff with Arizona State. That was not made. It's not been made official. It was first reported by Pete Thamel of ESPN, later backed up by Sun Devil sources Chris Cartman, who said that Kenny Dillingham has already begun searching for his next OC. As far as reaction, Bo lost the play calling duties halfway-ish through the season. And I'm not saying, like, if you lose your play calling duties, it becomes inevitable that you lose your job.
I mean, hey, we saw Colorado's offensive coordinator lose play calling duties and then get a head coaching job.
Yeah, but they gave it to Pat Shurmur. So did they really improve in that department? I don't think so. The grander point to get to, though, is that clearly Kenny Dillingham was not pleased with that particular hire, and now he's looking for somebody else to help fortify this offense. Jesse?
Yeah, for me, as soon as he lost play calling duties, I thought that Baldwin was going to probably not return as the offensive coordinator. He didn't have much success at his previous stop, so I thought it was an interesting hire to begin with. And as far as looking for the next offensive coordinator, I don't think they should. I think that their offensive coordinator should just be Kenny Dillingham.
Yeah, and just go out and get a QB coach.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what I think should happen. We've seen that work at multiple levels where the head coach is also the play caller and the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, it also doesn't work when it's someone like Cliff Kingsbury at the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, but there's a difference when, like, there's good coaches that do it. And not saying that Cliff is a bad coach, but he's not a good coach.
Here's what I'll say about that. And I talked about this last year when we were going into this coaching search, and it ended up being Kenny Dillingham who became the coach. I said that I wanted someone to come in and be able to focus on the offense, but also focus on the entire team as a whole. What we saw from Sean Aguano is when he came in, he did a great job of implementing his system into what ASU wanted to do, right? But I think the run game struggled a little bit because he didn't focus on solely the run game like he was focusing on before. Mm-hmm. That's just numbers. I don't know if there's any, truth to the matter. It could just be a coincidence. But if Kenny Dillingham is focusing on the offense, does that take him away from coaching the rest of the team? It's a valid question, I would say.
Well, so we had about half of the season to see Kenny Dillingham in kind of this dual role, right? Because Bo lost the responsibility towards the beginning of, not the beginning of the season, but
it was early.
Towards the beginning of Pac-12 play, let's say.
Yeah.
So Kenny was already handling calling of the offense and working with a roster that was continuing to spread thin, working with a team to try and keep them motivated throughout a season that they already knew there was going to be no reward on the other side of the 12-game stretch. And I thought he handled it as best as he could. Now, does that mean he should just automatically be the head coach and OC? I don't necessarily agree with that statement. I do think having as the perfect amount of heads in your coaching staff is what Kenny needs to prioritize. And whether that is adding another, or maybe if it even is adding 2 new coaches, I don't know. But I want him to be able to focus on his main everyday job, and that is being the head coach of this team.
Jimbo Fisher?
Oh, that would be big.
I also wouldn't mind seeing Sean Aguano at least get the chance to interview for the OC position.
Yeah.
I think that he, you've got to do something to keep him here, I think, as far as continuing to elevate him, because of course he has that head coaching experience. I think he loves Arizona State and plans to stay here, but I mean, if you got a better job opportunity somewhere else, why wouldn't you take that? So this is one of those things where it's like, I would love to give him an elevated role, to keep him around. And also, when he was in charge of the team, and I believe he took over play calling last year, I could be mistaken, they did some really good things offensively. Trenton looked like a much better quarterback under Sean Aguano than he did this season.
Sure. And I think at the same time, we also have to acknowledge that the team was not nearly as injured as it was last year than this year. But I agree with you. Even just Sean's body of work within the university should be enough to give him a warranted opportunity at that position.
Yeah, I'm just saying you got to at least interview him for the spot.
General thoughts on the football season as a whole, Jesse?
It was disappointing. Obviously, there were the injuries. The last 2 weeks of the season were really bad.
Brutal.
Just kind of an awful way to end the season. And
I think it was just the injuries catching up to them, basically.
Sure,
it's late in the season, and Kenny Dillingham said this in the press conference.
But sometimes you can get enough great play out of the guys that you have left to not get blown out by 30 points plus in consecutive weeks.
It's hard, though.
3 out of 4.
It's at the end of a season.
True, but
bumps and bruises, it happens.
Sure, but I don't. You've got to be able to get yourself ready to go and not allow that stuff to happen. Oregon's the best team in the country, in my opinion. We'll get more into this. But I think that that loss was fine, especially because they came out in the second half and won the second half. But what happened against Arizona was inexcusable. And so that's kind of what I took away from this season. And then they've got to have depth next year. Like, that is key, especially at the quarterback position, honestly. Like, they've got to have it at the offensive line.
It's crazy. The whole quarterback depth was tested this year. They had 4 guys that we all thought would be capable, and only one of them was, and he only played 3 games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that early in the year. We kind of liked the depth that they had at the quarterback position. Evidently, that was not the case. So Kenny's got to bring in the guys that he thinks can run the offense that he wants to run. And if that's not Drew Pine and Trenton Bourguet, then it's not, right? Jaden Rashada is most likely, if not 99% sure, that he's going to be the starter week 1 of
100%
camp.
sure.
Yes, week 1 of camp next
sure.
year.
There is 0 chance he's not unless he transfers.
That's why I said 99%. Anyway, you got to bring in backups that kind of play a similar style that he does. That's a fine, Jesse. You have to bring in guys just like Jaden Rashada, in my opinion.
The problem, I wonder, starts with, are you going to be able to convince guys that are built like and at the quality level of a Jaden Rashada to come to a university where Jaden Rashada is probably going to start, and it is very much his job to lose? And yes, we've seen plenty that can convince me that Rashada could lose said opportunity, but I've also seen a lot from Rashada that has convinced me that he has to be the guy moving forward.
Yeah. I'm not saying like an amazing 4-star, 3-star, 5-star quarterback here. I'm talking about somebody that is going to give you what Trenton gave you in 2022. Just kind of, somebody that can be a game manager if the starter goes down. And we did not see a quarterback that could be a game manager this year.
I also want to see someone with possibly a little bit better of an arm.
I don't really care. I don't really care.
You
just need a good game manager.
Right.
Jeremy.
But decision-making wise, Trenton, it wasn't there this season like it was last season.
Yeah, I'm saying somebody like the 2022 version of Trenton Bourguet, not the 2023 version of Trenton Bourguet.
But I'm saying maybe even a little better than the 2022 version of Trenton
I think that's
Bourguet.
going to be hard to find with so many opportunities to just go to a G5 or an FCS and be the starter.
Yeah, like, it's not impossible to recruit any of the quarterback prospects that are out there. it is slightly more difficult when you do have an established starter already.
Yeah.
And sometimes you will end up having to play the transfer portal game again, which they did last year, and they got the guy who was the starter at Notre Dame, and that didn't work out too well. The guy who was the backup at BYU, and I don't blame Jacob Conover for poor play. He was like the fourth stringer all year.
28.9% completion percentage.
He was like the fourth stringer all year. He barely got any run with the ones. Like, I'm not going to punish him for having a rough sophomore season. Like, shrug, whatever. But yes, to the point about finding somebody who is competent and able to come in at a moment's notice in case somebody gets injured and manage the game properly. Yes, I 100% agree.
But I also want to add, though, that, like, quarterback is huge going forward, but, like, they also need to shore up the offensive line because football is won in the trenches, and they've got to have...
Trench got a little beat up this year.
Yes, Trench got a little beat up this year. They struggled with the injuries, and then when the reserves came in, it was not good. Defensive line, I feel like they've kind of fixed for the most part, but I still
some of those guys they're seniors.
Yeah, I know.
You got to replace. It's also transfer portal. Who knows who's going to leave? Who's going to stay?
It's just important to have guys on the defensive and offensive line. So I really just want them to focus on a good backup quarterback and how to win football games in the trenches.
Here's my two biggest questions. It's offensive line, and it's the entire defense. Who's coming back next year? There are guys on that defense that can go to the NFL and not come back next year in terms of their eligibility, possibly. It's interesting. It'll be interesting to see BJ Green, probably. I mean, like,
I'll tell you
the
what,
defense is just an entire question mark in general.
I tell you what, the advantage for Kenny is that he gets to start now, as opposed to having to wait through the bowl season, having to wait through any potential CFP games. Kenny just gets to start now. I mean, I thought I saw that they've already got some scheduled visits upcoming for some individuals across the country. They're starting now. Like, they're looking at reinforcing this roster right now, and not a ton of teams can do that.
Yeah, and then obviously, as Kenny said after the game, the fundraising is super important here. They've got to drive that, fundraising to the program as far as continuing to maintain their great facilities, their great uniform combinations, all that stuff that recruits care about. And then they've got to also get people in on the collective. And I know that is picked up in the past few weeks since Ray Anderson resigned. My good friend is now a $10 a month guy, so to the Sun Angel Collective. So that stuff's got to materialize as well. So it's going to be interesting to watch over the next few weeks. Good thing is that, like, we haven't seen really any reports yet about
people leaving.
So, like, I thought maybe we'd hear like Trenton Bourget right away. Jordan Clark, somebody like that, and nothing so far. So that's good. That's positive news.
Pac-12 championship, guys. Oregon, Washington.
It's going to be a barn burner. That's
12-0 Washington, number 3 in the country, and then 11-1 Oregon, number 5 in the country. Jesse, you and I have a similar take on Oregon. We think they're the best team in the country. I don't think it's particularly close to anyone else other than Georgia. Those are the two best teams in the country, in my opinion. And I think Oregon is going to show it on Friday.
Yeah. Ever since Washington beat Oregon 36-33 on October 14th, Washington has, stumbled to the finish. They
skated.
Yeah. Yeah, they skated.
I mean, use the ASU game as an example. Yes.
They should have lost to Arizona State. So, in my opinion, I think that this game is not actually going to be a barn burner, Mitch. I think that Bo Nix is going to go out there and prove that he is the better of the two quarterbacks, that he should win the Heisman Trophy, not Jaden Daniels. And
not Michael Penix?
No, I mean, I don't even think Michael Penix.
I think he's too far out of it now.
But yeah, I mean, I think that this game is going to show that Oregon is the team that deserves to make the college football playoff. And they better win, because I'm not excited for what could happen if, and I know, Jeremy, that your mom is a alum of Florida State, but I'm not excited for what would happen if Florida State beats Louisville, Washington beats Oregon, Georgia beats Alabama, and Michigan beats Iowa, because then I think that it's just going to be either Michigan or Georgia easily winning the national championship, and these the semifinal games are going to be terrible. I'm just looking at it from a best case scenario standpoint.
How many Florida State games have you watched this year? Do you understand how good they are in the trenches?
Well,
but they don't have their quarterback.
Exactly.
That doesn't matter. They have one of the best running backs in the country and one of the best offensive and defensive lines in the country.
They would get destroyed by Georgia.
I don't know if that's true. They would get similar. They have
Michigan.
Similar trenches to Georgia.
They would get destroyed by Michigan.
Skill positions, yeah.
Michigan may know what's coming.
Okay, let's change the argument. How about we change it to this? Say Oregon wins, but say the conversation now becomes: do we put in Oregon, who has one loss to Washington and wins their title game, or do we give it to Ohio State?
No.
Who didn't have another game, and their only loss was
Ohio
to
State is out of it.
Because this is my developing fear, is that this is what's going to become the conversation after this weekend is done.
Best case scenario for a competitive playoff is that Georgia beats Alabama, Michigan beats Iowa, Oregon beats Washington, and then Texas wins against Oklahoma State. Texas gets in over Washington because Texas has that win over Alabama. So that's what, in my opinion, what I think should happen.
I don't know if that's going to happen, because I think if Michigan wins, if Georgia wins, Washington and Florida State lose, then Ohio State's going to get in.
I don't see that happening.
It'll be Ohio State and Oregon.
I don't see that happening.
They'll find some way to put Ohio State in.
I think
that's just my fear.
If Texas is the Big 12 champion who would have one more win, and then that win over Alabama, you've got to put them in. That's my opinion.
They're going to find a way to put Ohio State in.
Well, I hope not.
Look, I hope not too, but that's just my fear based off how history has tended to repeat itself.
Yeah, and Texas has been not very impressive.
They beat Alabama. If they beat Oklahoma State, they'll be the Big 12 champion.
How much does the Alabama win? You say, that was
Alabama
it was early in the season.
Okay, but Alabama is in the SEC championship game against Georgia.
Yeah, and what if Alabama gets blown out by Georgia?
Then
how does that?
Then maybe we reconsider things there, but I don't think they will. I think Alabama's figured it out. I've got to.
They almost lost to Auburn.
Okay, but that's a rivalry game. Things happen. I think Alabama has a very good shot of beating Georgia this weekend.
If this is what football brings out of you too, I can't wait to see what basketball brings out of you too.
Yeah.
Do you want to transition, Jeremy?
Yeah, it's a good transition. Men's basketball and women's basketball in Thanksgiving events. You ready?
Yep.
In Vegas Showdown, men's basketball lost 77-49 to BYU on Thursday
atrocious
before.
game.
And then it ended with a fight too.
It's a bad game.
They bounced back though. They won 82-67 over Vanderbilt, their best game of the season.
Shout out Alonzo Gaffney.
Great performance. Great first half performance.
He had 2 points in the second half, but the 17 in the first half were
second
huge.
half doesn't matter.
Other guys picked it up in the second half. They had multiple players in double figures in that game. I believe 4. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it was a really good performance for them. That game gave me some hope, because after that loss to BYU, I was like, I don't know if this team's going to have any offense this season and be able to, win it at all. But now I'm a little bit more. I'm a little bit more hopeful after that game on Friday, where they looked like they could actually score the basketball.
Bobby was praying after the game, he said, for a waiver after the BYU game for Miller.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Please
I don't
have some good news on
I hope that comes out soon. Like, the NCAA should have made that decision before the season. They're clowns.
Well, we know how the NCAA works. What I was going to say, though, is I would appreciate some consistency, because the offense has not been great throughout the, was it 6 games that they've played now this year?
3 and 2, so they're 5 games. But
5 games.
But maybe this is the turnaround.
Okay,
against Vanderbilt.
but also squeaking by, and I don't even remember who they played. That's how
UMass Lowell.
Yeah, squeaking by UMass Lowell. Just
UMass
because-
Lowell's a good team, though.
I know, but
You
being
keep saying
down,
that. I didn't know who they were
They
until
beat
this
Georgia
year.
Tech.
The point that I'm getting at is you're hosting them, and they looked miserable for the first 20, 35 minutes of the game. And they missed half of their free throws. Like, please, some consistency.
Okay.
The other thing
I
I will,
agree.
the other thing I will
free
point
throws.
out, I will admit it's hard to be consistent. Bobby's tinkering with the lineup a little bit more. Jose Perez started on Wednesday. Kamari Lands came off, or Thursday, or whenever it was they played Vanderbilt. Kamari Lands came off the bench.
Friday.
And
One of the days of the week. What a day that ended with a Y.
And I get it that no Sean Phillips around makes it difficult in terms of your big man rotation, but Bryant Celebonge stepped up to the challenge.
He's been great.
Not necessarily offensively, but he's creating some presence down low.
Defensively, and that's what we asked. That's what we were talking about early in the season. Before
Yes.
the season started, we said, will this team have a defensive identity like they did last year?
But at the same time, you still need to score. And they haven't figured out with Frankie Collins, who's it going to be? Is it going to be Jose Perez? Is it going to be Alonzo Gaffney? Is it going to be Kamari Lands? And they just need someone else who can reliably put up points, and I don't think they've found it yet.
Okay.
Okay.
I just that's all that you know.
I mean,
I'm
look,
just-
also,
you're agreeing with
I agree. Yeah.
Look, shameless plug. We'll find out tonight. Jesse and I are going to go to the game that they're playing against Sam Houston, and hopefully we'll see a more consistent offensive performance.
Listen, ASU averages 64.2 points per game. That's 8.1 points fewer than 72.3 that Sam Houston allows.
So Sam Houston's outscoring on offense, and then they're also holding down opponents defensively, and ASU is already giving them kind of a head start by not averaging as many points on the season.
Sam
basically.
Houston is 4-3 on the season. So
3-game
there's
winning streak, too.
Well, there you go. ASU women's basketball lost to Texas. They got blown out 84-42. But then they beat South Florida, who is perennial pretty
Tournament
good,
team.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
good program. They beat South Florida 66-49, and then beat High Point to finish out that Virgin Islands Paradise Jam Classic. Is there a classic in there?
I don't think there's a classic.
I think it's
in
just
there.
jam.
There's
it's
always
just Jam.
there's always a classic.
To make a Jeremy joke, it sounds like Treasure Hunt struck gold during
She did.
the tournament.
They put her back into the starting lineup.
Let's go.
And she was really good on Friday against South Florida with 14, and then she had 19 on Saturday against High Point.
They're going to need that offensive output.
Yeah, and she's getting rebounds as well. So, I mean, I think that maybe she's somebody that they've got to go with for the foreseeable future on in the starting lineup.
For ASU the men's team, Zane Meeks will be out with a foot injury, and then of course
Real bummer.
Phillips will be out for a little while longer.
Couple
as well.
foot injuries.
Yeah.
That's kind of disconcerting that two of your key rotation guys have foot injuries, you know?
I mean,
I'm not saying like it is a coincidence, but at the same time,
it's a sport where you use your feet a lot. You got to cut, you know.
I
Yeah.
guess.
But foot injuries also have been really bad for basketball players in the
Yep.
history of the sport.
Yep.
So guys, hockey school?
Yeah, we're a hockey school now.
And volleyball, sorry. Hockey
We're a
and
hockey
volleyball.
and volleyball school.
Again, shameless plug, JJ Van Niel coming up in just a few minutes. Please stay tuned for that. But ASU hockey split with Providence this weekend. What a great overtime victory on Friday. Then, not so great on Sunday with the loss. But, hey, hockey looking good this season, continuing to move up in the polls. They're number 12 now.
I mean, look, they split with Denver and they split with Providence. I don't think I could have asked for anything more out of those two particular weekends from this team. That's awesome.
Frozen 4?
I mean, anything's possible. And I will say that it's a great atmosphere over at Mullet Arena. I think it's probably now the best atmosphere of any sport at ASU. It looked insane on Friday at Providence or against Providence. And yeah, I mean, this program's just very, very much blossoming, and it's a great thing that they added it.
All right, you ready for this? Volleyball is in the tournament.
Shout out to the Kill Queen.
You want to talk about Marta real quick?
She's amazing. She also made all Pac-12 team in volleyball. That was an honor that was announced, I believe, just yesterday. And then, as I mentioned earlier on, JJ Van Niel, the Pac-12 Coach of the Year. And then I think they had 4 other members that were
for
honorable mention
as well. Yep.
Absolutely fantastic year for year one of JJ.
Yeah. It's the best hire that ASU's made in a very, very long time. At any sport, any level. Like I've been saying for years that they got to care more about this program, and it looks like they did with this move. And he's super impressive, as you'll hear in our interview coming up with him. And obviously the players that he has this year are terrific, and seem like they, or at least from what I've seen and from what he's talked about, they seem like they're a close group. And that's really important in team sports, especially in a sport like volleyball that is so team oriented. You've got to be communicating the entire time out there to make sure that, you're not going to miss the pass from another player, so, it's been impressive. I'm excited to see this weekend, hoping that they avoid the letdown. They are a better team than Georgia, so I'm hoping they're avoiding the letdown.
I do appreciate that it's neutral site, because yes, while it is cool to have, like in the women's basketball tournament, for example,
it's not technically neutral site.
Well, what is Provo?
BYU's hosting.
Right. Okay. So they're in the area of BYU's host, but ASU is also a 5 seed in their part of the bracket.
Yeah.
So they're not being overlooked by any means in terms of the other teams that were seeded in this tournament.
No. Yeah.
I believe GCU was seeded too, so good for them as well. Casual shout out.
So ASU is a 5 seed. They play Georgia at 4:30 on Friday in Provo, as we said, and the game will be on ESPN Plus. Please tune into that one. And Jesse, something that, spoiler alert, that JJ Van Niel told us is this Georgia team is similar to the Oregon team that they have played twice this season. So
just with a lot more losses.
Yeah. So we'll
ASU's going to win.
Okay.
Pac-12 volleyball's good.
Straight sets.
The winner will play number 4 BYU, the winner of number 4 BYU and Weber State on Saturday. So back-to-back games.
Oh man,
matches.
I didn't realize there's 2 Utah teams on the side of the bracket.
Yeah, Weber State.
The Utah teams will probably have a lot more fans there than Georgia and ASU.
Shocking.
Surely.
Because they're in Utah.
There you go. But yeah, so back-to-back matches Friday and Saturday. Hopefully Saturday, if ASU can get past Georgia.
They will.
Jesse has guaranteed a victory.
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
But right now, please welcome the head coach of ASU volleyball, JJ Van Niel. All right. Welcome, JJ Van Niel, the Pac-12 Coach of the Year. Everybody give Coach JJ a round of applause. Congratulations, Coach. We really appreciate you joining us here today.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to come on, and yeah, it's been a fun season, and of course, it's an honor to get that award. I think because it's voted by your peers, but I think more importantly because it really is it's a team award. Coaches don't receive it if it's not their team playing well and doing the things that they've been doing. And I couldn't be more proud of a team than this team we got going this year.
Let's talk about your team real quick. 26-6 so far this season, 14-6 in conference, 9-1 at home. I think that's huge. But also, as you head to Provo this weekend, you got Georgia up there, 8-0 in neutral site games this season, so you got that to look forward to as well. As you look back on the season that has happened so far up to this point, going into the NCAA tournament, how have you seen this team grow over the year?
I think it was an interesting season because our preseason, we didn't have a ton of Power Fives in there. The Pac-12 conference is so tough and so physical. I think there was a lot of doubters, from what we were doing in the preseason. And obviously our numbers have come down because when you're in a conference like the Pac-12, things are a lot harder. But I think there's been a ton of growth with just learning how to play more physical teams, and honestly just continuing to do the things that we do and work we kind of take pride in, and it's just been a matter of working on that consistency over and over and over again through the Pac-12 season. But I thought it was pretty cool that we went 7-3 in the first half, and went 7-3 in the second half. You know, I don't really look at all these milestones and all the things. And I got sucked into clicking on Kimber's link that has 2023 milestones after the Arizona game. Because really for us, it's always just who's next, what are we doing? And I think the team's been pretty cool about staying focused. So I think that's another growth area. I think it's really easy for teams to start, I don't know, look at like most of the time we would have to ask what we were ranked. No one really, I try to tell them like, it doesn't matter. Don't pay attention to stuff. All that matters is whatever, Arizona, we were getting ready to play Arizona. And I thought they did a really nice job this season of sort of staying in the moment of what's next. So,
Coach, this program, you know, the past few seasons, you know, hasn't had the most success. When you got this job, did you expect to have this much success and make the NCAA tournament in the first season of you taking over this program?
You never know, you know, and at the end of the day, when you take over a program that, you know, maybe hasn't been, you know, doing phenomenal. I mean, they've done some good stuff. Like there were definitely moments, and I wouldn't say Arizona State is a team that the Pac-12, when I was on the other side, I was looking forward to going to play, you know? So I always thought, hey, they're a really scrappy team and there's some really good pieces. Obviously March is good. Shannon I recruited. I know Shannon well. Jeter was someone who I couldn't stand playing against because you'd think you'd have her stopped and then she'd hit some weird shot and score, and her serve is really good. So there were certainly pieces, but for me, there were all these other aspects of this opportunity that really excited me. I think when I really got fired up about, hey, we can make the tournament was as we got going in the spring. You know, I've said this from the start, like the 9 kids that I inherited they're absolute rock stars. Like I'm so blessed to have gotten to walk into them in the program. They were so bought in, so fired up. It didn't matter what we were throwing at them as far as like, hey, we're going to do community service. And it was like, great, let's go do it. You know, there was no like, I don't know, not that everyone does that, but I'm just giving that as an example. Leadership training, like whatever we threw at them, they were in. And as we were going, I was like, oh, we obviously needed to fill in our roster. We only had 9. But I don't know. I would say pretty early on when I saw what we had, I was like, we can surprise people next year. You know, and our bar was to make the tournament. Like we were like, no, we're making the tournament. So you obviously never know, but I thought with some of the pieces that we got through the portal and then the pieces that were already here, we thought we could surprise people. That's for sure.
What makes this team go? What would you say? Is there a person on this team, or is there just something that fires this team up that just gets them going on a day-to-day basis?
I think it's the team. It sounds corny. It sounds a little cliche, but again, I've talked about this a lot. Like this is a really, really special group that genuinely loves to be around each other. And I think especially in the season, like when you start getting into October, November, like it's a grind. You have, I'm not going to say kids get sick of each other, but like you can definitely, stuff wears on. It's a long season. It really is. And the Pac-12 is gnarly. There's 20 matches, you know, a lot of other conferences only have 18. So there's no breaks, there's no rest for the weary. And the team just genuinely like loves being around each other. And I love being around them. Like it makes my day when I get to be around my team. I absolutely adore them. They're just awesome. You know, we did a little mini golf thing before the selection show, you know, and I was honestly like, oh man, I don't know. They might just be like, dude, we're gassed. Like we just played last night. Like we'll show up at the selection show. But like they loved it. You know, we were competing, we were having fun. And so really, I think that's it. You know, I think they love competing for each other and with each other. And that's what makes it so special. So
the game on Friday, 4:30, it's going to be on ESPN Plus against Georgia in Provo, Utah. To kick off the NCAA tournament, just what have you seen out of Georgia, and, you know, how are you all going to, you know, combat them in this matchup?
Georgia's good. You know, Yeah, they're good. They run really fast to the pin. So they're someone earlier today asked, like, is there anyone in the pack that's similar? And there isn't, because they have a middle that, I think is average almost 5 kills a set, which is pretty rare in volleyball. She hits out of the back row. They find her from off the net. They do all kinds of things to get her the ball. It's cool to watch her. But the other thing they do that is similar to someone in the pack is Oregon. They run really fast. Their left side balls are very fast. So, for us, it's not really different for us. I think all season, for us to find success in most matches, we've had to win the serve and pass game, and there's other teams that don't have to win the serve and pass game to win, but we have to win that game. So we got to serve them tough, which gets them off the net. So it's harder for them to find their middle in good situations and harder to run as fast. And if we can do that, then, we have a shot.
What's the ceiling for this team? I know you're just, taking it one match at a time, but as you go in to the NCAA tournament, you were one of 3 teams left undefeated at one point this season. What is the ceiling for this team?
I mean, I competitively say, if you play the right match, like, you can go all the way, right? We're not as physical as other teams. I mean, we were able to take down Stanford earlier this year. I think we were the only one in the Pac-12 to do it, and we played flawlessly that game, or for the most part. And they played maybe not their best match, in some areas, but I thought we exerted a ton of serving pressure on them. So they were off the net more than they are normally, and I think the sky's the limit. You can do anything if you can, catch teams when they're maybe not playing their best, and if you can play your best. But I think we could do some. I think we surprise some people if we can play our game.
Also, Coach, I wanted it personally for you. If I were to talk to you 2 years ago and I'd say that you were, 2 years later, you'd be the Pac-12 Coach of the Year, you'd be at Arizona State, competing in the NCAA tournament, coaching these girls, what would you say to yourself?
Well, I might say that's cool. I'm glad it's all working out. I don't know. I mean, the personal awards, again, like, it's a team thing. For me, like, it's cool. Like I said, it's an honor. But really, it's how can we do in the tournament? I've been fortunate to get this opportunity. This has always been a school since I've been in the conference that I had said, like, if that job opens up, that's a place where I would love to have an opportunity. And so, yeah.
Coach, you mentioned the win over Stanford. There was also the win over Oregon. There was the 2 Territorial Cup wins, which were, y'all didn't surrender a set to U of A. Just this season, which of those wins has been, just which of the wins overall, it could be one that I didn't reference, but which of the wins overall has been your favorite?
That's a loaded question, right? I don't know. I think the Stanford one was pretty special, but they all were, right? Like, Oregon, we had come off a loss to Oregon State, which was a really tough one because we had some opportunities, and you lose in 5, and you never know how your team's going to respond. And so I thought that Oregon was a cool response, and we played, again, that was another match where that team's really good, but we were on point. And the Arizona game was the first game in Mullet. It was our first home match. It's the only one I've worn a suit for. And we had 5,000 people there. Like, that was an amazing environment, right? And then we go out and played really well. So they've all been special. I think the Stanford one is just, the reason it stands out is because I've only gotten to be on a team that beat Stanford one time before, and typically when you take them down, they beat you in just about every category, but there's one category statistically you beat them, or there's a couple plays here and there, and you pull off the win in 4 or 5 sets. We just happened to be on fire, and they weren't. And so we beat them in just about every category, and just, it was cool to see our team. That team in that match, we were playing loose and free and flying all over the place, which was pretty fun to watch.
Okay, last one, and then we'll let you get out of here. You mentioned that you wore the suit against Arizona. I am very much pro coach wearing suits. Will you be wearing a suit in the NCAA tournament?
No.
Ah,
I don't want to bring it. I don't want to bring it with me. I don't know. There's not many coaches wear them. It's not like, hoops. I think is a little more standard. No, I don't plan on. My wife would like me to, but I don't know. We've been doing our whole season without it. So aside from that match,
come on, Coach. Happy wife, happy life. You know the saying. All right, Coach.
Fair enough.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, and best of luck in the first round against Georgia on Friday.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you so much to JJ Van Niel once again for joining us. Jesse, as you said, very impressive guy.
Yes.
And we really wish him the best of luck and his team on Friday afternoon. Can't wait to watch that one, but let's get to our picks for that match. Jesse, you already said that they're going to win. You guaranteed a victory.
yeah, guaranteed a victory, straight sets. Not going to be close in at least one of those sets. Like, there's going to be one that's like a 25-11.
I'll be cautiously optimistic. I'll go with a 3-1. I think Georgia is going to take the second set, but then ASU is going to get their mojo back in the final two sets of 3 and 4, and they're going to take it handily after that.
Nerves play a factor in this, Jesse. You have to think about that. I think it's 3-1. I think Georgia actually comes out and wins the first set. But I think ASU ends up rattling off 3 straight and winning this match.
But like, the points are going to come in a barrage for ASU. I'll say this too. I won't be surprised if one has to go beyond 25. If one of the sets has to go beyond 25, I wouldn't be surprised.
We've seen them have to do that, so a few times. So it wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, like, it's generally speaking, it's tournament play, and I know I'm being like cliche.
Breaking news! ASU football breaking news.
Okay.
Jalen Conyers has entered the transfer portal.
Oh. Okay.
That kind of doesn't surprise me, but he could also always come back.
Let's just pause on the picks and react to this a bit more, because
let's
he was
talk
kind
about
of
what
he was
he's-
kind of a key member of the offense this year.
Let's talk about what he's meant to this program. He just posted on social media. I can read it real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
First off, I just want to say thank you to everyone at Arizona State University for making my experience here memorable and enjoyable. To all the professors and academic support staff that helped me during my time here, I am so grateful for your help in assisting me earn my degree and graduate from Arizona State.
So he's looking to grad transfer, basically?
It seems that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you to Coach Brenneman and Coach Herm for giving me the opportunity to come to ASU. I would also like to thank Coach Wood and Coach Iguana for providing me a chance to show what I can do. To Coach Dillingham, Coach Mons, and Coach Wade, thank you for helping me to continue turning myself into the player and man I want to be, all while challenging, encouraging, and believing in me. To my teammates, thank you for the opportunity to fight, grind, and compete with y'all these last 3 years. Lastly, thank you so much to Sun Devil Nation for the love and support. For all the fans that listen to my podcast, businesses that I worked with, and kids that I had the privilege to being a role model for, I cannot thank y'all enough for what y'all have done for me. I will forever be a Sun Devil. With that being said, after a lot of taking time talking with my family and prayer, I've decided that I will be entering the transfer portal as a grad transfer with 1 year of eligibility remaining. I look forward to what God has in store for me and the opportunity ahead.
That sounds like a guy that's going to leave to me.
That also sounds like a guy who wants one shot at the big thing, and he's going to be looking at a very small select group of
USC.
schools to do that.
I'm saying USC right now.
I don't know about
Where
that.
is he
USC.
from again?
I'm not sure, but
this is also
but
his
he
second-
was recruited by Lincoln Riley to Oklahoma.
This is also his second
He
time.
went to Oklahoma.
Yes.
This is also his second time transferring, I will point out, because he's only been at ASU for 2 years. So as a grad transfer with only 1 year left, I'd have to think it's either where he can best his stock as an NFL tight end who can do all sorts of stuff, or he's looking to win a national title. and he doesn't think ASU is going to be able to do that next year. Now, you brought up that, yes, he can exit the portal and return. That doesn't sound like a guy who was going to return.
And he is from Groover, Texas, so maybe one of the Texas schools.
So in the Big 12, maybe.
I am on record saying he's going to USC.
I don't think that's going to happen because he already transferred away from Lincoln Riley.
So if he's transferring away and he's
Lincoln Riley was leaving.
But he could have gone with...
that was he transferred before the 21 season.
And he could have followed Lincoln Riley if he wanted to, but he didn't.
Yeah, so I don't think he's going to
Also,
go to USC.
I think the disastrous season that was for USC this past year, I don't think there's going to be
it's going to be a Texas Tech, a Baylor, a Texas,
well, if you go Texas, then you got SEC.
Yeah, a TCU. That's what I think we could see with him. He's a very good tight end.
He's awesome. Like, as far as leadership and then what he can do on the field, and I don't know much about his off-the-field persona, but I know that with the increase of NIL, there are opportunities out there, and Jalen made the most of those opportunities. If I'm not mistaken, I think he was one of the highest-earning athletes at ASU.
I don't know the figures on that,
but
yeah.
The point being is that that's a huge blow because he was a key offensive playmaker for the team. There's also questions about Elijah Badger, who was unavailable for the final game of the year. Is he going to go to the draft? Is he going to come back for another year? Is he going to decide he wants to go somewhere else? So already you've got one key playmaker who intends to leave and then another key playmaker who's on the bubble. So there's another area of need for this team already. And it's not even December yet.
Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting offseason. I'm putting full trust into Kenny Dillingham that he's going to bring in guys that will be able to compete right away. Not only that, but guys that will fit his system and the culture that ASU is trying to create here. Not saying that Jalen Conyers would not any of that, but I'm happy for Jalen Conyers. He was able to get his degree here and able to be a leader on this team. And that is something that we'll remember as not only Sun Devil alums, but people that follow this team pretty closely.
Can we pick those games now?
Yeah, no, we can go and pick those games now.
Sorry, we just had some breaking news. Now we can pick games.
Yeah, so we did our volleyball picks, now Pac-12 championship picks.
Oregon's going to win 42-17.
Mitch?
I'll give it to Oregon, but I think it's going to be closer than a multi-score game. I think it's going to be, say, 35-33.
I think it's going to be a blowout. I think Oregon wins 42-14.
Okay. College football playoff? Want to do that?
Who's the top four going to be?
Yeah, you got it. Go ahead.
Unfortunately, I think Louisville's bad. Like they're not bad.
So you're going 4-1 here.
What was that?
Are you going 4 down to 1? Here?
Yeah. Okay. Unfortunately, I think that Louisville is not very good. They're kind of frauds. So I think that FSU wins, and I think they get in because you can't keep out a 15-0 ACC champion, or I'm sorry, a 13-0 ACC champion.
15-0. Wow,
yeah, 15-0 would be if they won it all.
Yeah.
So I think they come in at the 4. I believe Oregon beats Washington. They'll be the 3. I think that Michigan is going to not steamroll Iowa, but they'll do the Iowa version of steamrolling Iowa, which is 24-7. And then Georgia's going to beat Alabama. So that's going to be your 4.
I want total chaos.
Okay.
I think it's going to be.
You want this, or do you think this?
I want it.
Okay, but you got to give us what you think.
Okay.
This is not.
Here's what
This is not me making my evening.
Okay,
picks
so here's what I want
courtesy
to
of our
happen.
friends
I want
FanDuel.
Georgia to lose to Alabama and all those other things.
I think
to
we
happen,
all
like
want
you
that.
said.
You want FSU to lose?
No, I want all the other things that you said that were going to happen.
We like the chaos, you know.
Okay, got it. The chaos, but give us your actual pick.
Okay, 4 Florida State, 3 will be Oregon.
Okay.
2 will be Georgia. 1 will be Michigan.
Why you have Georgia behind Michigan?
Because I have Georgia losing to Alabama, but Alabama not getting in.
Georgia drops 1 spot if they lose.
Yes.
Yeah, no, they would drop to 4.
That's
No,
what
they
I
wouldn't.
would think.
No,
They would drop to 4.
No, they wouldn't.
They would drop to 4.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Or
you're wrong.
maybe 3, and then they make an argument to try and have Georgia and Michigan on opposite sides of the bracket because that's what
I think
CFP
is
would
going to
hope all
happen.
along.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
I think that Georgia would be 4 if they lost.
In that same vein, Georgia 1, Michigan 2. And I think in fairness to the fact that Florida State's likely to still go undefeated, they would get 3. And then whoever wins the Pac-12 is 4, and I'm going to go with Oregon for that. So
Okay.
again, Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, Oregon.
Okay. Well, should be interesting.
I think it's going to be fun. Thank you so much to JJ Van Niel for joining us here today. A little wacky episode. We had that breaking news happen.
Man, what are we going to title this bad boy? That's what I want to know. So much.
Well, we'll come up with it.
Thank you guys so much for listening. You can follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads.
Threads?
Yeah, at AZ Sports Devils on all of those platforms. You can also find us wherever you get your podcast, and you can watch every episode of this, or at least most every episode, on our YouTube channel, on the Arizona Sports YouTube channel. Look at all of our writing stuff on ArizonaSports.com and the Arizona Sports app. But for now, for Jesse Morrison and Mitch Vereldes, I'm Jeremy Schnell. We'll talk to you later.